gentlemen, we are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. April 1st. I'm not going to do any April Fool's stuff. I don't even think of anything creative at that. It is nothing comes to the top of mind. But what's not April Fool's, though, is every Wednesday the Freight Coach newsletter drops. If you want to get in on that, I do need you to go to my website for any other reason, no other reason than I don't want to auto sign my contact list up for it, because, like, frankly, I get super annoyed when all of a sudden I start to see all these random newsletters that I get signed up for. I mean, I understand the hustle, but I personally want you to want my newsletter. So if you want to get in on it, just go to thefreightcoach.com. All I do with the information is pay the software that we use to distribute it. I don't even know who signed up for it. So if you're worried that, like, I'm somehow going to give out your information, you got nothing to worry about, because I don't even know who signed up for it. But that drops every single Wednesday. It's just freight related, you guys. Rates, diesel, all that fun stuff that us real transportation professionals get to think about and worry about and keep yourself up at night with. But today, we got to go with a solo show today. My guest got sick, and fortunately, he gave me enough of a heads up, though, and I was able to find a bunch of good articles on that. He's going to come on next week. He's a longtime friend of mine, and also moves a lot of flatbed freight. So that's why I always enjoy having him come on the show. But today, we're going to jump in with This Week in Freight, powered by DAT. Today, it's going to be a reefer lane out here. And if you want your lane broken down on the show, you guys just email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com. And all I need is a pickup city, delivery city, and a trailer type. And I just help you guys read the market. I'm not going to tell you what to quote on this stuff, because frankly, I don't know what your customers' budgets are. I don't know how hot a certain shipment is. I just want you to understand what I look at as I'm going out there and assessing new lanes for my customers. And with this one, we are going to be breaking down Laredo, Texas to Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, pretty much everybody I know who moves produce freight, which is a lot of my friends in this industry, move refrigerated, move produce. And every single one of them in the last couple of weeks has talked to me specifically about South Texas and Southern Arizona, and just like how hit and miss it is out there right now. And so as we always lead in with this, you guys, this is a great weekday lane. All right. And I say that because, hold on a sec here. That's not, something just happened on my computer. There we go. I'm not a tech guy, but this one, you guys, it's 1,142 miles. So this is a great Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday lane, shipping Thursday and shipping Friday to Monday. Obviously, if it's a weekend receiver, there's going to be, an upcharge that comes along with it. But when I'm looking at this, Thursday to Monday, Friday to Monday is going to be exponentially more expensive for any mode when it comes down to this mile marker on here, but especially inside of refrigerated, because they got to obviously run their reefer unit an extra day of transit out there. But I want you guys to pay attention to this absolute spike that has gone on out here, okay? This time last year, we're in April now, this specific lane, Laredo to Atlanta, was moving for $3,200, all right? Pretty much, I went to public school, you guys, so you guys can do the math on the rate per mile on there. But if we're looking at where it's been, it's like $4,700 now to move this specific lane. And Laredo to Atlanta is a pretty solid lane. There's a lot of carriers out there that are willing to run this one. And obviously everybody's heard about diesel prices going up. I am of the mindset, a lot of the constraints that we are seeing in the current market from a capacity standpoint, I think are very much tied to the price of diesel. We work with a lot of the same carriers, all right? Like I actually practice what I preach on this show. We have our core carrier base that's out there, and we were talking to a couple of them here earlier this week. And they've all had to request higher credit limits from their fuel providers currently, because like the amount of additional fuel that they are paying right now and having to float that to wait for their invoices to come in it's tricky, right? So I think that is a big part of why some of these individuals have just parked their trucks over this past couple of weeks, because they can't afford to run. I think one big thing out here, specifically when you get close to the border, immigration is a very, very real thing going in and out of these areas. Now, not saying that every driver who goes, close to the border is illegal or anything like that. I just know that there could be potential backups at some of these checkpoints that are out there. And if you've never driven down close to the border, you guys, there's like multiple checkpoints. Not only is there at the border where Customs and Border Patrol sit, where you got to, show your passport. The further you get in, I don't know the exact mile markers that there are, but like there's multiple immigration checkpoints the further you drive up there. And I would assume, and from what I've heard from people in the industry, that there is a massive deterrent for capacity to even want to go down there because of the wait times, the processing times that go on. And these are even people who are 100% legal operations. They just don't want to deal with it. So that is a couple of those key points that you see on why prices are what they are right now. Okay. And if you haven't had that conversation with your customer, after I tell you guys about this lane a little bit more, I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I've said out there, because again, I want you guys to actually like know what to say in these situations, because some of you maybe have never had to have this call. But with this lane in particular, again, I think you should be speaking with your customers specifically about the fact that this lane is probably not going down anytime soon. I would expect this lane to only continue to rise. And I would want to talk to my customer about working with them on a load by load basis. All right. I wouldn't be blindly accepting anything unless you have a solid core carrier base that is committing capacity to you and you know that they're going to be down there. If you have contracted pricing with your customers right now, specifically on this lane, like if I was in your position and I was basing the data off of last year's numbers, and I'm looking at all of this stuff, you guys, and I'm assuming a lot of you put in your bids based on November and December data. So maybe you put in a little bit of a cushion in there, but if you didn't, I would be talking to them about potentially rebidding this lane right now. And I would almost want to talk to them about getting truck in hand pricing for this specific lane and other lanes. I'm assuming out of there. We got a lot of stuff from South Texas that was submitted here, you guys. So I'm going to probably spend a lot of time in South Texas here for the foreseeable future, specifically for drive-in and refrigerated. But again, I would just have a conversation with them about this, because it might not even be a price. There might just be a actual drop in lack of capacity entirely. Loads are going to start to sit. And I'm going to work this through. But like this lane in particular, if you're in a truck in hand spot market situation, you're in a very strong position right now. But you also need to have this conversation that I'm going to tell you guys to do here. But this lane in particular, Laredo to Atlanta for a reefer, pay attention to those miles, but pay attention to where this market is trending. I wouldn't be surprised if this is in the mid fives by this time next month. And it's only going to get higher as holidays start creeping in here with Memorial Day, 4th of July, stuff like that. This is a lane to watch. And I would be very weary about how much freight I would commit to this here moving forward. But that lane is, that's what is it for this week in Freight, powered by DAT for refrigerated freight this week. But let's get into how I handle difficult conversations with my customers. Some of you have maybe never experienced this before. It's a very, very challenging time for a lot of people when you've only booked freight when it was easy and capacity was plentiful. You could probably get away with some behaviors that you're now starting to realize maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to do or say at that time. But we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about how do you actually navigate this stuff, because it's easy to point in one direction or another, you guys, be like, oh, everything's flipped. Everything, this is going on, that's going on. But if you've ever realized or like actually looked at a lot of these posts that you see, they're not actually providing you any guidance outside of the sky is falling, everything's blowing up. And it's because they probably don't know, because they've probably not moved freight for maybe a very long time. And that's kind of a problem, right? Like that's why I do the show every single day, because like I do this job every single day. I've seen multiple market shifts that are out there. A lot of my guests who have been on the show have been there. And I want to, my good friend Chris Brewer, you guys with River City Logistics, if you're not connected with him, I want you guys to connect with him, because he puts out a lot of good advice. All right, a lot of good advice to help people as well. He's grown a very successful company, you guys, and him and I share a similar mentality. We just want to, like, we love the industry and we just want to help individuals, and his content is going to help you guys out through this time, because this is what makes or breaks a lot of people in this industry. What do I mean by that? Specifically brokers. This market, if this continues for the foreseeable future, which there's a lot of signs pointing that there is, this is going to make or break you in this industry, right? Because everybody's good when it's easy. All right. Everybody's, bumping chests and, doing whatever it is that people do these days when it's easy and simple and capacity is plentiful. Yes, it's been challenging to develop new business and new customers out there, but booking freight has never been an issue. And now it's becoming an issue. And I pay attention to a lot of what I see out there. If you haven't brought up the price increases with your customers at this time and you've never had that conversation, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. All right. Plain and simple. You got to call them like they're aware of what's going on. But what most people fail to do is actually have a real conversation with them about everything that's going on in the market right now. And I just want you guys to pick up the phone and talk to them about where fuel prices are, right? Like there's an exponential increase with it. But I also want you to, depending on the geographic location of the shipper, I want you to talk to them about what's going on with ICE enforcement and, what's going on at the scale houses and everything, and how that's negatively affecting capacity in certain markets. And some of them are going to be hit exponentially harder than others out there. And you're going to really start to see this as the year progresses. And you got to bring a lot of this information to their attention, right? Like we talked about, the state of California canceled like some 10,000 CDLs here within the last couple of weeks. That has massively affected capacity in the Southwest region. And we move a lot of freight out of there. I've called my customers. I've talked to them about that. But again, you guys got to back it up with data. You got to back it up with facts. You can't back it up with emotion. All right. And it's very easy to sit here and say that right now, but you can't go in there and have an emotional meltdown because things have changed and you're maybe not as good as you thought you were just a couple of short weeks ago. But rest assured, you guys, communication is going to solve all of your problems. And when you're going through a market shift out there, you got to be very coordinated on how much freight you're going to commit to. You can't just blindly accept 15 shipments anymore, at least in most markets. Maybe I'm just getting older and my risk tolerance has dropped, but I want to ensure that I have like a truck in hand, especially for the hard to cover lanes. Now there's certain markets out there where we know there's capacity. We know everything's going to kind of be all right for us. But for the most part, we're not as aggressively accepting freight anymore on specific lanes. And I call my customer when that lane pops up. All right. I will call them and I will have that conversation. I will explain to them like, hey, this is what we're seeing out here. I just want to keep you informed. All right. And don't assume anybody else is doing it, because a lot of the feedback I get from my customers as well as shippers who have been on this show, nobody has hard conversations at all. Most people just hope the problem goes away, but just address them with the actual facts that are out there, you guys. It's very well published and publicized what is happening right now. And you need to be a transportation professional, because this market will make or break you. All right. This will solidify you as that badass broker that you think you are, or it will absolutely crush you and you will walk away with your tail between your legs, because like it hasn't even got bad yet. All right. I'm going to maybe mess a lot of you guys up by saying this. Capacity hasn't even gotten that tight yet. Just wait till freight sits on a dock for 4 days, because there is no actual truck for it. And it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. And you're making 50, 60, 70 calls a day to lose $500 on one shipment. That's a tight market. I've seen that multiple times out there. So it could get worse. All right. And trust me, like you just got to have a couple of, it's not even a difficult conversation. It's a factual conversation, because they know what's going on. They can see it, but most people don't actually pick up the phone and tell them and have an honest conversation about where things are. This is a great opportunity for you guys to solidify yourselves as a true transportation partner in this time. So that's how I would handle it. That's how I handle it, because I actually do the job that I talk about here, you guys. But let's break down a couple of articles here. As always, the links to the articles are going to put in the show notes for you guys, because I want you guys to read these articles or drop them into AI and have it summarize it for you. Do you? The first article was ttnews.com, and anytime I see these two organizations in the headline of an article, I'm going to read it, because it's rare that they're aligned on a lot of stuff. Not that I have any information that's privy, but normally the ATA and the OOIDA are kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum. And when they agree on something, I'm all ears. I want to read this one. So this one is ATA and OOIDA press Congress to enhance safety in trucking. Groups point to the FMCSA's new entrant safety assurance program. In a rare display of unity, the ATA and OOIDA have issued a joint statement regarding federal safety technology mandates. This united front targets the FMCSA's push for automatic emergency braking and speed limiters, arguing that technology must be mature before it is mandatory. The letter also emphasized strengthening the educational component of early safety audits. New entrants should receive clearer guidance on regulatory requirements such as driver qualification standards, hours of service rules, vehicle maintenance, and drug and alcohol testing. And it goes on to say earlier and more consistent engagement coupled with meaningful entry qualifications and checks will improve safety outcomes, Chris Spear of the ATA said. The group's push for regulatory action comes as lawmakers prepare this year to debate major transportation funding policy bills and consider legislation to toughen commercial driver license enforcement and ELP rules for commercial drivers. I think like I had mentioned, you guys, it's a very big deal when the ATA, TCA, OOIDA, and all of them are kind of on the same page with a lot of this stuff. They all care about the industry. All right. But, obviously ATA represents a lot of the mega fleets out there. OOIDA, obviously owner operators. I look at it from the speed limit. I've put my opinion out there on speed limiters. I don't think it does anything to improve the safety of the industry out there at all. I look at it as like, what's the point of speed limits if we're going to limit the speeds of the trucks from a technology standpoint? I think if you want to put them on your truck, do you? I just want to be abundantly clear. I don't think the federal government should put that into law. All right. If you as a company choose to do one thing, that should be your own decision to make. I don't think the federal government should tell you you have to govern your truck at 65 miles an hour maximum speed or whatever arbitrary number they come up with. I just don't like that at all. I look at it also, from automatic braking systems. I think like that's an OEM thing. And again, I look at advancements in technology. That's like one of those things that kind of like when we were talking about driverless technology yesterday on the show, I could see that becoming more and more of an acceptable policy out there as technology improves. But, one of those big sticking points of this is a lot of this technology is still new overall. So is it the most effective technology? And from what I've gathered from this article, and I would tend to agree with them, it's not. We got to let a lot of this stuff be tested out extensively before we go out there and make anything mandatory. And I look at it, also of, it's been no secret that the FMCSA and the DOT has been, dropping the hammer from a compliance standpoint this year on like what they're doing. But, I also look at it is there is, there's a cost that comes along with this as well. And, who's going to pay for it? Like if the FMCSA and the DOT make this mandatory, who pays for this stuff, right? Like $5,000 is a lot of money. I'm just choosing an arbitrary example here, you guys. And if that's what it costs to implement some of this technology, is that going to cause more capacity to leave the market? Because I think people tend to fail to realize that like you actually need money to operate a business. And if your margins are already slim and then you got to put another $5,000 into your business, do you have that $5,000? it's a lot easier to debate policy on Capitol Hill when it's not your P&L, because like they just have an open checkbook in the government, right? They just spend more money and raise. Sorry, that's not a time for this show. But when we're looking at the costs associated with a lot of these new laws that, and especially from a technology standpoint that they're talking about here specifically in this article, I mean, that's a very real thing. Even a mega fleet, right? If you got 1,000 or 2,000 trucks and it costs $5,000+ to do something, like that's a massive expense. That's going to get pushed out to somewhere, right? So I just look at a lot of this is it's great that a lot of the organizations are getting aligned on some of these key issues. But, again, as always, you guys go out there and talk to your local representatives, call your congressman, woman, and voice your opinion on this stuff. Like we have to do this, because if we don't, all of these lobbyists are going to have free reign to go in there and do anything. And again, we can make the argument they kind of already do what they want anyways. But again, that's a different conversation for a different show, because like I don't think anyways. But that article, you guys, is from ttnews.com talking about OOIDA and ATA press Congress to enhance safety in trucking, but also talk about like, hey, if we're going to do this technology needs to be mature. And again, who's going to pay for this if this is what you guys want to do? But next article, this one is from freightwaves.com, and it is why CSA scores have become trucking's public report card. Shippers, insurers, and regulators all watch the numbers, and fleets say the difference often starts with a proper pre-chip. A single burnout taillight can cost a carrier tens of thousands of dollars in higher insurance, lost freight, and extra DOT inspections. For many fleets, the pain starts long before the roadside stop. The gap between paper compliance, the lower the safety score, if I'm a distribution company looking at two different carriers that theoretically do the same thing, but you have a CSA score of 12 and I have one of 76, I'm going to choose the one with 12 because I know the trucks are probably safer and operating more efficiently. The logic goes beyond shipper negotiations. In a competitive freight market, a poor score triggers a cascade of operational consequences, more frequent roadside inspections, and higher insurance costs. Robert Federico, the dispatch manager for tropical shipping in Miami, has seen firsthand how quickly a single violation can alter a fleet's trajectory. 6 months ago, we had a driver at our own home port get pulled with a chassis and a truck that each had a tail light out, or a light out, excuse me. That event prompted them to start showing up for more inspections once a week. As we started to get clean inspections, they limited it. But that was me living under what I had only read about. It took one driver getting pulled over, and now you're on their radar. Once on that radar, cleaning up becomes a grind. Federico estimated a 4-to-1 ratio of clean inspections to dirty ones before the carrier starts recovering its score. And then it also goes on to say they got like 15,000. Okay. So a driver he works with paid $15,000 in annual premiums. After accumulating 9 CSA points, that number jumped to $36,000 the following year. I look at with where a lot of this is, and there's a lot of really good information in this article, you guys, but it does talk about the pre-trip and the post-trip inspections that you're doing on your fleet out there to make sure all of those things, because again, one simple thing can lead to massive fines. And it also kind of got me thinking a little bit, right? Like when we're out here, because there's been, and this is kind of off topic of the article, but as a freight broker, I look at a lot of these things that they're talking about here. Those are like the decision-making factors that a lot of us make to if we're going to book a carrier or not on a load. And if the data that the FMCSA and the DOT are operating off of is old or lagging or something like that, I mean, how are we supposed to make the most sound decision that's out there? I think as they are looking at a lot, and again, I am in full support of the DOT and the FMCSA changing things, a lot of and improving safety out on the road and doing all of that stuff. And again, as a trucking company, it's on you to make sure your fleet is up to date with everything that comes along with it. But this when I was going through this article last night, it really got me thinking about a lot of the stuff that we see out there with a lot of the headlines, currently. And, brokers are seemingly always the ones to get blamed for everything out there. And, depending on some of the groups that you go out there and pay attention to on social media, brokers are criminals and everything else under the sun. And, I think like we kind of got to like draw a line in the sand on a lot of this stuff, you guys. There's two camps on all sides of the industry. There's ethical people who follow the rules and do the right thing. And then there's the alternative. There's the criminals, the people who aren't following the rules, the people who are making it a lot harder for all of us who are doing the right thing. And I think we need to start separating that, right? Like we need to start drawing that line in the sand. And there are a lot of great freight brokers that are out there, just like there are a lot of not so great freight brokers that are out there. There are a lot of great trucking companies that are out there, just like there's a lot of other trucking companies out there that aren't so great, right? So I think we need to stop blurring the lines and start calling out things for what they are, because there's been a lot of high profile cases that brokers have been drug into here recently. And I look at it as a lot of us as brokers, we decide who we work with based on like government data. And a lot of the carrier vetting software that we use are all pulling from government data that is out there. And I'm looking at what point does the brokers, like, how are they able to show like, hey, we did everything we could in our power with the information that was at our disposal there. And, at what point does, the actual operator of the truck have to accept responsibility for their actions out there in the event of a crash? Like there's been a lot of publicized high profile cases here. And when I was reading through this article, it just really got me thinking, like, I don't understand how brokers are pulled into a lot of this stuff. And especially if you can show I wasn't negligent, right? Like I followed these steps. Now there's a difference, again, back to, we got to draw a line in the sand. If you blatantly overlooked a bunch of this stuff and still booked a truck and then something went out there and unfortunately happened, yeah, you should be brought into that. But if you're out there and you're able to show like, hey, we followed all the steps, they passed any and all of our internal standards, i.e. why you need to document everything inside of your business. If it gets to that point and there's an unfortunate accident that takes place, like they got to be able to be absolved at some point, because like we're not the ones actually driving the truck. And if everything on paper that the DOT and the FMCSA provided that shows that they had a clean operating record, they had valid insurance, there was nothing like that, I just feel like, why are we being drug into this stuff as a broker if we can prove that we did everything right? And, I think like there's only going to be more and more scrutiny passed down here the more and more things progress. So it's like, as a broker, if you're not documenting how you assess what carriers you work with, or if you're not using any carrier vetting software, and again, this isn't a push for me to tell you guys to go up and sign up for stuff. But you need to really start looking at that, because I feel like it's only going to become under a greater spotlight here, you guys. And, again, there's a lot of great brokers that are out here who are doing the right thing. And I just don't want to see anybody pulled into a lawsuit because they didn't dot their I's and cross their T's. I think we're beyond that. I think like with where things are from a tech standpoint, all of your processes should be very well documented, and you should be able to prove it. Because again, it's just the more and more I see a lot of these data points being put out there by, safety scores and everything else, you can't overlook this stuff, you guys. You really can't, because it's only a matter of time, unfortunately. And if you get pulled into something, it's not gonna, you can't say, I don't have it. It really pretty much ruins your defense. I just don't want to see anybody lose their business because they don't think about this stuff. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We do have guests, as long as they don't get sick, coming on tomorrow and Friday. But that's going to be it for today. If you guys got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.